It's very close. Mike Williams is 1/10 of 1 point ahead of Scott Burr. But they will move now to their second rotation. But we're going to take our first look at the women before we see the men for a second time. And the women begin their competition on the vault. Vaulting first is Robin Richter. Again, a reminder, women vault twice in Olympic competition. They will vault twice here. Both scores are scored independently. It is the higher of the two that will count towards her all-around total.
Good job.
Robin Richter was born in Lincoln, Nebraska, still lives in Nebraska, competes for the Nebraska School of Gymnastics, where she is coached by Peggy Liddick and Steve Elliott.
She does a Yurchenko vault in the laid-out position. She's a little close to the horse. She'll want to get a little more distance next time. Her hands didn't quite get onto the horse in a good position. As you can see, she didn't get her hands up on top of the horse enough. They were just barely on and didn't allow her to get the kind of push and the repulsion off the horse that she'll need.
And Robin Richter on her first vault received a score of 9.2.
Her coach, one of her coaches, by the way, Steve Elliott, is a former world champion in power tumbling, an incredible athlete in his own right. I'm sure he instructed her to get onto the horse just a little bit more so she can block a little higher and spot the landing. That's a better one. Oh, she knew she had it. She tried to stick it, and she opened up just a little early.
Yurchenko vaults, and her second score will be up in just a moment.
Once again, the round-off approach. She gets onto the horse, a little bit better push. It looked to me like she was standing up a little too soon right there, and she thought she had enough rotation to not have to take a hop forward. She does get her hands up farther on the horse, but she didn't get the push that she was looking for.
Score is coming up now, 9.15.
The second vault was not scored as high as the first. She received a 9.15. Therefore, it is the 9.2 that she received from the first vault that will carry into her all-around total. And that is the score that concerns Wendy Bruce the most, because that is the score she must try to attain. Wendy Bruce is 16 years old. She was born in New York, but lives in North Lauderdale, Florida. She is coached by Kevin and Rita Brown.
Now, she has signified with that score of 4.91 next to her and the runway that she's telling the judges she's going to do a Yurchenko full in the laid-out position. Oh, that was nice.
And high. Kevin Brown doesn't have much to say except, all right, try to do that again.
She had good power here. Good, clean position onto the horse. Solid laid-out position. And an easy twist. She'll try to stick that the next time. There's no question about that. She's very comfortable with the amount of power. She just barrels into the horse here.
She is now 16.
Good, clean form in the air.
And the judges barreled into the points. They gave her a 9.775 for that first vault. And that's got to really bolster her confidence as she heads down the runway for vault number 2. Now remember, this is a young lady who on ESPN won the mixed pairs competition. She was teamed up with Li Jing from China. A real surprise tandem that came out on top. But she's proving now that was no fluke.
She'll do the same vault. There it is.
Wow.
That was the landing she was looking for. Kevin Brown is pleased with that.
And he should be.
It's an interesting story. You know, she's been living up in the Browns Gymnastics Academy up in Altamont Springs, Florida. She's up from North Lauderdale. She's been living with the Browns for the last year. Then her mother decided she's going to quit her job as a computer programmer and move up there with her because she really wants to make a strong bid to be a significant member of the U.S. team. And she feels that her mother needs to be there to support her in this effort.
Right now, she's doing quite well, though, 9.85. And if Mom comes along, maybe those scores will even get higher. So after one rotation, Wendy Bruce leads Robin Richter by a .65 margin. The men are moving now to their second event, which is the pommel horse. You are looking at Mike Williams. And Mike Williams, you recall, in his first event, floor exercise, received a 9.5 to give him a 1/10 of 1 point advantage over Scott Burr.
Mike has such an incredible attitude. He said this is the hardest event for him, but it's his favorite. Because it's the hardest, he loves the challenge. And it certainly is an event that is quite different from any of the others.
Hey, this is the event in this format that has really been breaking a lot of gymnasts.
Oh, wow. He almost blew it right at the beginning, but he really pulled it out. He was having a lot of trouble with form. typical of the Mike Williams style, though. He's doing a lot of good tricks. Hit a very good move there in the middle. Good scissor work with a full turn. He doesn't quite have the elevation above the horse that you'd like to see.
I'm up on the floor.
A little sloppy in the form and a little choppy in the rhythm.
But he stayed on.
He's pretty pleased with that because he got off to a rough start, and it could have been much worse because he almost missed the first move.
And we've seen so many gymnasts do that. They get off to a bad start and it just goes downhill, but he hung on.
He does a backmore here, looks pretty good, and then he bends his arm, and this guy is strong because I can't tell you how hard it is to continue to swing in a circle when your arms are bent like that. He picked up the momentum and continued very nicely. He does flares down to the end and loops around. He's going to go up to a handstand and try and pirouette off, and he has a little trouble here, but he makes it.
So Mike Williams waiting for his score on the pommel horse. It's a 9.05. Now that might make a little room for Scott Burr to regain that 1/10 of a point he lost to him on floor exercise. Scott Burr, again, from Richmond, Indiana, now living in Utah because he's training at Brigham Young University, although his family is in California. Began the sport in 1982. A late bloomer, I guess you could call him.
Sure has a varied group of hobbies. He's into art, nutrition, and scuba diving.
That is diverse.
Flares on the end. He's very quick. I like this aggressive style. Whoa! Oh. Amazing. We have seen so many guys have trouble on the pommel horse here. He was doing a really very difficult series of moves in the flared position, traveling across the horse.
He seemed to be working so well, too. I didn't really see a reason for him to fall off.
Well, this has been an inconsistent event for him. He's had plenty of trouble here in the past. He swings a little too fast and almost out of control. That kind of style can be very exciting. As you can see, he's very explosive. But it's also the kind of style that can throw you off on your feet before you know what happened.
All right, let's take a look at the beginning where he fell off and see why it happened.
Now he starts just ripping into these flares, travels across the horse nose. He's not using the pommels. I mean, this is a great mount. He gets a little too far forward, and he's pretty strong, but not strong enough to pull that back into control. At the end, though, he picked back up into these really very aggressive flares, full turn off, and a good finish. Too bad he had problems early on.
If he could have stuck it, that's a very impressive routine, but I think you're right. He has to slow it down just a little bit. Again, the score he wants to beat is 9.05. That is what Mike Williams attained on the pommel horse with the fall. I don't think he'll be able to do that.
Score for Scott.
Although in terms of originality, I really liked the routine. Unfortunately, the judges really penalized him for the fall. 7.60, the score for Scott Burr on the pommel horse. Mike Williams has a lead after 2.